Welcome back. This week we're going to go with the Miss October from the brush variation from the dubbing brush instead of doing the palmered. I just wanted to show you guys how that one looks, how that one is tied as opposed to with the palmered Marabou, the 4 stacks of palmered Marabou throughout the pattern. It's not really tied any different, it's just quicker, a little bit more efficient, and then I'll explain it as I get into it a little bit further with the brush. That's one that's partway used here, but here's the brush that I'm using for the Octobers, and I'll explain a little bit more in detail what I like about that one a little bit more than the straight palmered, besides the fact that it saves a lot of time when you're tying in bulk. On top of that, I'm going to do the gray and white version. If you're on the social media at all, I had that one on there a couple of weeks back, had a lot of positive responses from it, a couple of folks asking how, you know, for a material list and everything, so I figured I'd just put a video out and do it, and go from there. For hooks on this one, on the back hook, we're going to go with a 7050 MFC size 4. And then a 7008 size 4 in the front. The 7050 is a 3X, 7008 is a 4X long. Once we get a little closer into the winter, if I had the curtains open right now, we're in winter here in Montana, early October, and we've already had 2 foot of snow, and it's putting a little damper on the fall fishing here to this point, you know, more so than what work is. But like I said, once I get a little bit closer into the winter, what I would like to do, my buddy Lee asked me to do a video on explaining hooks a little bit, and then like the selection, and then paring down just the insane amount of choices that we have out there, which is a great thing, a lot of variety and all that, but I'll explain that a little bit further when I'll do probably a time tips video here once we get closer to winter. But one thing I'm missing real quick. It's just looking at this one here and realized I was missing some gray Marabou, so we'll go ahead and get into this one, hopefully with limited interruptions. As you can see, the little one's wound for sound. She's come out of her shell a little bit. She's a little bit insane, actually, but all the joys of a lab puppy. Okay, that looks pretty good right there. Kind of moved the monitor and some things around a little bit, so I may be a little bit out of sorts, and I'll be interrupted because now I got a pup in my lap again, and oh goodness. I even ran some steam out of her before I started filming. I figured I'd, you know, help myself out a little bit, give myself a chance to film at least one good video, but we'll see. I'm sure there'll be some entertainment on her behalf here as we go through this. If not her, it'll be Knoxville, one of the 2 of them, I'm sure. So to start on this one, as always, for the wing, or for the tail, we're just going to have a little bit of flash on this. It's going to build a little bit of a taper on the back side. This is just some ice wing. This is polar wing for the color. And then I'm just going to take a clump of this, I'm going to double it over, and then you don't need a ton on this at all. Very minimal is required, really. But I'm going to double it over, and then double it again, just wrap it around my thread, get it in place where I want it, and then secure it from there. Now, as always, I'm going to take the same measuring, or the same measurement that I always use on this, on the Renzetti. It's just I stretch everything out, and then it's this first bump on the tension control that I use. That way I always have consistency with the length of my tail and my taper and everything there. Next up, I'm going to take the brush that I made, and this is just out of all scrap Marabou. If you watched the video on the building the dubbing brush table, I explained and did one not the whole way through, but I kind of went through the process of building this brush. And like I said, this is all scrap Marabou stuff that I would have thrown away before. But now we just throw it into a brush, and I'm not having to prep and palmer 4 different pieces per fly. I get about 20 flies per, what was it, 5 brushes, 6 brushes, something like that, depending on how well I built the actual brush itself. And let's get this out of here. Cam, you're gonna have to go take a seat, buddy. Yep. She likes to try to eat the Marabou. No. Go lay down. Hey, go lay down. Oh, goodness. Draw queen. Alright, you're good. Go. Go lay down. She's not crazy about the filming yet. Okay. Like I was explaining before I started this, is the differences between the straight palmered Marabou and then the brush Marabou. You get a little bit more bulk right here in the center, and that's because of these end clippings. When I throw it in the brush, you get some bulk in there. So what it does is it actually fills out a little bit more, and I really notice a difference when it's in the water. It just pulsates and swims, and it has a thicker profile, honestly, because that center section isn't just the stem of the Marabou. You have these clippings and those end pieces that get in there, and it fills this out a little bit more, in all honesty. And I really feel that it gives a little bit more of a profile, and it swims a lot better too. But the end result, if you compare this one to one of the ones that it's done without a brush, it looks almost identical on the back half. But like I said, this section right there gives you a little bit of a bump, and it gives you a little bit more of a profile. So, on from that, we're going to go to our body material for this, and this is just silver UV puller. This UV puller, I use this in almost every single one of my patterns anymore. Even if it's not for like a full body, even if it's just like a turn or two here and there, I love the flash that this stuff gives off, and it's just really easy to work with, really manageable. So next up on this, we're just going to take and tie this in and advance our thread forward. Leave yourself about 1/4 of an inch to where you're not going to have any material, because we still have our lateral lines. We've got another couple of turns of Marabou, and then 1 overwing on the gray. So we'll just take this about every 3rd to 4th wrap, just preen those fibers back, get everything out of your way, that way you're trapping as little as possible. And I just wanted to turn sideways on me there, so it wasn't as clean of a wrap as it could have been, but that's alright. We've got plenty of fibers in there with minimal trapped. Alright, from here we're going to go into some Grizzly Hackle. Like I said, you got about that 1/4 of an inch right here to work with, and this is just off of a neck. As you can see, the top section I picked pretty well through there. Still a lot of good hackle in there for dries and everything, but as far as this purpose goes, I'm going to have to move on to a new one here before long. So now I'm just going to measure this out, and I want it extending just slightly past the tips of the Marabou. These ones are a little bit short, but they'll serve the purpose. And then same thing as all of them, there's nothing new on this from the other Octobers. I'm just going to lay this down the side. Give a couple of loose wraps here and I'll work my way up to the eye. Once you get a couple of good loose wraps on there, you can really cinch down on this. I don't go the whole way up to the eye with this because it has a tendency to want to roll, because as you tighten down right in front of that eye, if that stem's still there, it has a tendency, like I said, to want to roll this material down to the side. And that's just not going to catch any fish that way, so I don't do it. I try not to. Once again, like I said, stopping just short of that eye, I'll bring this in, kind of roll my scissors over, and then I still have stem enough to get up to that eye and then have a little taper right there. Now, we've got those sitting how we want them. We've got the nice lateral lines going down the side. We're going to go back to the brush, and then I'm just going to pick a little bit of this out here. That way it exposes the wire. I'm looking at doing these with, wireless. I just haven't found anything that I'm too crazy about just yet. The wire's good. I mean, I don't have any complaints with it. I just think I could do them cheaper if I had something other than the wire, because it's a little spendy per spool. Not bad. It's not bad, but I think I could do it cheaper and cut my overall cost down on the fly. So, once again, we're just going to palmer this section here, or we're just going to tie in our brush. It's going to look like a palmered section of Marabou. I don't like that too much. Give me one more good wrap. This one's going to take 4 wraps. Typically I only do about 2 to 3, but I didn't really like how that was sitting right there, so didn't like the way it looked, so I just gave it a little bit more. We'll fill it out some. And tie this off, get it out of our way. Because I had to do an extra wrap, it's going to put me a little closer to the eye than what I actually want it, but it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Oh, I got plenty of room there. Plenty. So now all I'm going to do is just work my way back over top of this, maybe 1 to 2 wraps back. Cinch this down, see how it looks, if everything looks good. If all my material's flowing how I want it to, which it does. It looks like it's doing pretty good there. Yep. I'm just going to pick out a gray overwing. I'm going to lay that over the top and our back half's done. If you do get a sparse section on the brush, this is the best place to get it right there, because as soon as we tie in and connect our front hook, there's going to be another section going over top of that, so it'll kind of fill in the gaps a little bit. I don't like them too sparse, but if there is a section that's a little more sparse than the rest of them, that's the one to do it on. Just going to go ahead and get this second overwing while I'm at it here, so that way I can put the gray out off of the bench. Save some time here. That looks like it'll suffice. It's not the best, but it'll do. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is just peel this back, and it's just like you're tying in a tail, or just like selecting tail materials from Marabou, but I'm going to take a little bit extra on this. Typically my tail wouldn't be that long. I would have a lot less material, but because I want this as an overwing and I want it to extend back a little bit more, I want it to extend back about halfway down my lateral lines. I'm going to take a little bit more, like I was saying, and throw this in here and get that on. There we go. Cut that a little closer than I would like to on the eye, because I had to get that extra turn, but it's all right. It's not going to interfere with anything. It's just a couple of pieces of fibers sticking in the eye of the hook. Now, before I go on to the front hook, I'm just going to grab my connection wire here. This is 19 strand Beadalon, and get back here. This one's going to be a little short. I got a bunch of 10-2s going right now on this wires. That wire's a little bit shorter than the October, but I had an extra, and instead of cutting more, I'll just use this one. So now I'll put 2 red glass beads on here, connect that, and I'll go on to my front hook. Like I was saying, this is a 7008 size 4, and I'm just going to build up a little bit of a thread body on this hook. Get out of there. A little bit of a thread body, and then work my way up to where I put the eyes in. Now these eyes right here, these are also an MFC product. These are really cool. If you've seen Kelly's flankback creature, he uses the glitter blue in them. I like the way that they looked, so I stole it and put it on the October. So here we go. Getting our eyes on. Get these secured. A couple of wraps on each side. Just figure 8 and then come underneath. There's a whole tutorial on connecting lead eyes if you care. There's got a whole one dedicated just to that, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about how I'm going to connect these. Touch of super glue and we're ready to go. Same thing, I'm just going to come over top. As you saw, I flipped the eyes around. When the eyes are on the bottom of the hook's going to ride down. If it's up like a clouser, the point of the hook's going to ride up. So these ones are designed to ride down in the water. And then just give a quick look from the front. Everything looks good there. And give a couple more wraps just to make sure I catch some glue with this thread. Just kind of spread that around a little bit. And then we'll come back and we'll tie in our back hook here. Make sure that your wire, and I know it's going to be really tough to see right the way that it's sitting right now, but make sure that your wire is running parallel through the beads, and just spread the beads apart. Make sure that it's not crossed over or anything. And then get this tied in, running right down the side. And I want to shorten that connection up a little bit. I only want about 1 bead's width. After that second bead, I only want about 1 bead's width right here between the eye and that second bead. So we'll get this in the cradle here, get that out of our way. Probably put it through my thumb here before long. And I'm just going to work my way up, and then I'm going to pull tight on this. I'm going to take these tag ends, capture those, and then tie them down. It just gives me a little bit of reassurance that stuff's not going to, that the wire's not going to slide out after a good hit or something like that. I've only ever had it happen once, but once was enough for me, and I started doubling wire over. So just a little bit of extra reassurance. Alright, so now you can see we're starting our thread between the point of the hook and the barb. And like I was saying, we're going right back to the brush on this. And I want to make sure that this is nice and picked out before, so I don't have the same thing happen that I did on the last one. I want this one to be really, really bulky. So we're going to take this, and then hopefully I can get away with just 2 wraps. I'm going to preen these fibers back So when I wrap this around, I'm not trapping the fibers. That's a really good section right there. That's a really good section. It's going to make this one look really good going back. And you'll notice that I'm not using the rotary function of the vise on this. I tried it a few different ways. I just couldn't really make it work. The material wants to spin and rotate, and you wind up trapping a lot of this material. So do it the old school way and just wrap it by hand. And if you have some that you feel, before I do that, let me just secure this real quick. If you have some that you feel are trapped, you can take the points of your scissors and just kind of pick through them, but the bodkin's a little bit more designed for this, so to speak. And another thing that you can do if you want to, you can tone this section over as well. Take another gray piece and run this over the top. I don't really feel it's necessary, and you'll see when I get that other piece on there, it's going to wind up right about at the back of my bead, or at the start of my beads. So there's really only, an 1/8 of an inch section, or 1/2 inch, depending on how much distance you have on your connection, that's really going to be white instead of gray. So I haven't done it, really. I don't really find it necessary. But there you can see, like I was saying before, this white section now covers this second palmered section up that I tied in before, and it's a seamless transition all the way back. And now we're going to go into the UV puller again, get this tied in. Now I'm going to stop this just past my halfway point, because we've got 3 materials yet again that we need to tie in before we get to the eyes and building the head. So now same thing, we're just going to wrap this forward. This is where I'll go back to the rotary function. And I'm going to back that off 1 turn. There we go. So we've got that. We're going to gather all these fibers and wet your fingers, and then just peel all this stuff back. Capture those fibers so they're all heading toward the tail of your fly. Now, we're going to take, that brush is shot. I didn't do the best job. That was probably one of the first ones, or maybe the last one that I built. Who knows? Didn't like how it turned out. I'm going to take a section here that I really like. And I'm going to work with this just to highlight how well these brushes actually do. That back section right there I'll use or the section that I cut off and threw away, I'll use that on subsequent back sections. I always look for the more sparse ones. I'll set them to the side and I use them on the back hooks, and then these bulky ones obviously I use on the front hook. Should be able to get away with 2 wraps on this one. Yeah, that's got some really nice feathers on that. There's one. Get a second. I should be able to pick that up pretty well. Not going to go any further. Yeah, that's going to look good there. That's going to work good. So now we'll go ahead and just secure this in, and then clip off that back section there. Got this all nice and picked out. You got all these free-flowing fibers, and it would be really tough. You would have to find an exceptional marabou feather to get it to palmer and to get that much bulk and that fewer wraps. And like I said, when this thing hits the water, it comes to life with these brushes. I really like the way that these things have turned out. It took me a good while to get them dialed in, but I'm really pleased with how they turned out. So I'm just going to capture all of this stuff here. Eventually, once I get the fly inventory built up and the website up and running, probably going to be starting to sell these brushes as well. So you could probably look forward to that in the future. And then we've got some brushes that I'm finishing up for the rainbow riffles right here. These things just cut time down like nothing else that I've tied with before. I can't believe it took me so long to buy into these brushes, but sometimes I'm, believe it or not, a little stubborn. I don't like change too much. But turns out this was change for the good, so we'll take it. Okay, now I'm just going to take, and I'm down to the very last of this. I think I have one piece left. I'm going to take 3 gray rubber legs. These have the black and blue specks in them. I don't know, you can use whatever color you want, but I really like the way that these ones look. And before I do that, I knew that I should have. Before I do that, because I'm making a mess out of it, where do we go? I'm going to grab the straw here. It's going to make life a lot easier. I'm just going to capture all that stuff underneath. Now I can tie my legs in without any interference. Just a figure 8 over the top. Set your rubber legs how you want them, and then go 1, 2 wraps, cinch that down, and then it's going to pull that figure 8 tighter. And there you go, you've got nice legs hanging straight down, not flying all over the place. And then we're going to go with our last toner on this one. Same as before, I'm going to take a little bit more than I typically do with the tail sections. Set those aside. By the way, this is the stuff that I cut off from this. This is the stuff that I build the brushes out of. Typically I just throw this right in the trash. This one's not the best. I mean, it'll work. There's these good fibers. It takes a while to build these brushes, but that's the material that made those 4 sections right there. So I'm going to find a way eventually to speed that process up, and then I'll really be able to crank through those brushes and maybe make them a little more consistent as well. I just need some more time playing around with it and thinking. And then there's our gray toner yet again. I'm going to go ahead and cut these rubber legs, and then I'm going to reset my straw, and then we'll work on the head, and this fly's finished. So go ahead and trim those to the length you want them. Pull these out, and then we'll capture all of this stuff yet again. The straw's not going to catch everything, but if you take the slit in the straw and you point it up, stuff won't be able to fall out of the bottom. If 1 or 2 things come out of the top, that's fine, but not the end of the world. Okay, now I'm just going to take a little bit of red Senyos, and it's probably a little bit more. Yeah, I want about half of that. Take some red Senyos, and a little of this goes a long way, especially against a light fly like a tan or a white, or even black a little goes a long way. Sometimes on the olives I need to use a little bit more than I typically do on the other colors, but like I said, for these light ones, a little goes a long way. Alright, so now I'm going to flip this around. I'm just going to take this and just trim that. We got a nice little throat right there. Nice little red throat on the underside of this pattern, and you can see when I pull that straw off, you'll see how it goes. Now we're going to use some silver minnow belly for the top and then white Senyos on the bottom. When you pull this stuff out of the package, don't just take it right like this, throw it on there and tie it on. You'll wind up having stuff fall out all over the place and your head will be really sparse. Just make sure that you work this through your fingers a little bit. That way the bulk of this, you should be able to take this and squeeze and pull on that center section and you don't have anything falling out. That way you know you're going to have a good secure bundle that you're tying in here. So now, loose wrap, second loose wrap, and then I really pull down tight on that. With this gel spun, it's pretty thick, or pretty slick, so I'll half hitch on this one, at least for the first two. It seems as I get to the front, because I'm not tying over all of the bulk on the hook here, I don't lose anything, but once or twice I had one kind of slip away from me, so I half hitch on this back section. Now, same thing with the gray. I'm just going to take the white, work that through my fingers, and then set this on the underneath side. We're going to go 1, 2, really cinch down, and then I'm going to take it to the front and half hitch. Now the reason that I do that half hitch, if you're not working with the gel spun, it's probably not necessary, but if I didn't half hitch right there and I took and extended my thread down and I started doing a wrap like this, those previous wraps are going to have a tendency to want to loosen up and you may lose some fibers going through there, so I always just take that half hitch and do that right there. Mainly, like I said, on these back ones, that's where I normally had the problem in the past, but there we go. Out of habit, I did a half hitch and brought the cradle over. Alright, now the rest of this, if you want to just fast forward to the end and see the finished product, I don't blame you because it's the same as I did with the rest of them. I'm going to take the last two pieces. I'm going to get one right in front of the eyes, 1, 2, cinch down. Same with the white. Work the white through your fingers. Good. And then right underneath, I'm going to go 1, 2, cinch down, and then work your way to the front. Right in front of the eye of this hook, right before it starts that downward descent, is where I want this last section tied in. And it's going to look a little segmented here before I brush it out and get everything cleaned out really well. But once I brush it, it's pretty seamless. Alright, there's a third. 1, 2, tighten that up. Last section, we're going to take the white. I want a little bit more on this one. And don't overdo this with this material. As you can see, I'm not working with a ton of it. That's really all the more I have in each section. When I first started tying with this material, I would use excess. I think what I was doing was equating it to ram's wool, and there's just so much material in ram's wool and you get so much bulk, and I thought that I needed to use more to get the profile and the shape that I was after. But after swimming them and tweaking a few patterns and watching some other folks tie with it, I found out that less is more on this as far as performance and profile and everything. So there's the end of that. If you want, you can take a gray marker and just touch the top of it. I do on some of them, others I don't. So it doesn't really matter either way, really. And then I'm just going to take the trusty dubbing brush here, or my dubbing teaser, whatever it is. I'm going to stand that stuff up, kind of bring all three sections together, and I'm just going to trim this all the way back. Pretty consistent, shorter in the front, longer in the back, and that way it has a nice little kind of flow to it. I don't really like that too much though. I'm going to take a little bit more off of that. One little section right there. Getting a little picky. There we go. Now, same thing with this top section. There we go. There's the finished head on that. Just kind of brush that back, just kind of tease it a little bit, and you can see everything just kind of falls into place, gives you that nice profile on the head. Now once we peel this straw off, the whole thing's going to come together. There we've got our overwing. We've got the nice bulk in the Marabou from the dubbing brush. Get this section right there, just kind of clean this up a little bit, that way you guys can see everything. There you go. There you have the Miss October with the dubbing brush. Now it looks like a really bulky pattern, but in all honesty, once this thing gets in the water, it does slender down some, but with all of this palmered Marabou, and especially with the brush, this thing comes to life in the water. I've bragged on this pattern probably just about as much as any of them out there, especially, well, definitely on ones that I've designed. This has been my favorite thus far. It's probably a toss-up between that and the White Girl, but this one has produced the more big fish than any other one that I've come up with so far. Let me see, am I forgetting anything here? I don't think so. I think I covered everything that I wanted to. Anyhow, if you guys have any questions or comments on this one, leave them with me. As always, I'll get back to you. But thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next fly.